from South Africa to eastern part of Africa, where after almost a decade of speculations, Lieutenant General Muhoozi Kainerugaba has publicly expressed his interest in succeeding his father, Yoweri Museveni, as president of Uganda. Kainerugaba, who is the commander of the country's land forces, first signaled his desire to go public about his presidential ambitions when he auspiciously turned his 48th birthday celebrations towards the end of April into a national event.
What remains unclear, though, is when General Muhoozi is likely to contest for Uganda's top post. While his father's term in office ends in 2026, and of course Muhoozi is still a serving soldier in the Ugandan People's Defense Forces, UPDF. The country's constitution, however, forbids serving soldiers from participating in active politics. We now have joining us Dorcas to speak on this. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, we don't seem to have Dorcas running off shortly, but I think that it's important that we have this conversation because we see that Yoweri Museveni has been in power. He's the ninth and the incumbent president of Uganda, and he's been in power for a while. And his tenure is ending in 2026. We're wondering what is going to happen after this. Is this going to be some form of inherited democracy? Yeah. Several mixed reactions have trailed the announcement of this, with some people being in support of him and others saying, they're totally against this.
It's a stereotype African presidency for a lot of African countries. They stay in that position for 20, 30 years and find ways to put, either a child or a spouse, to take over from them after, their 30, 35-year rule. And we've seen this many, many, many times how this happens, and so I'm very, very sure, that this very likely would play out just like it has always played out in other countries.
Interestingly, they've been asking, is this something that is likely to happen? Over the years, conversations, and he'd outrightly come out to say no, he was in no way interested. In fact, I stumbled on an interview he granted 5 years ago where he was asked, are you interested in running for office? He said there's no such thing. There's something they call the Muhoozi Project, where it was said that the father is grooming him for presidency. And he's come out to say there's nothing like that. But it's interesting to see that 2 weeks, how many years after, almost a decade after, we're seeing these conversations. It will be interesting to see how the people of Uganda would react to this. Of course, there'll be mixed reactions, but we look forward to speaking with our correspondent in Uganda to find out exactly what the pulse of the people are as regards this particular story. And if it's something that they're quite excited about, if you imagine that happening, of course, I cannot imagine that happening.
I mean, but it's not stuff that cannot be tried here in Nigeria. We see it on the state level also, where people seem to be grooming their sons to eventually become governors of a particular of a particular state in Nigeria. So it's not too far fetched. It may not happen on the presidential level yet, but it's very likely that things like that can play out.
Conversations surrounding the term referred to as political godfatherism, yes, which a lot of them have come out to say does not exist, but beyond what is being said, what is actually being done is the conversation.
Godfatherism, I mean, maybe because of the way it plays out in Africa, but it's a common, scenario across the world. It's not just here in Nigeria that you hear about political godfathers. It happens in the US, happens everywhere else. We somehow, somewhere have just been able to fight to hold the barest minimum of what our constitution holds with regards the elections. And that's why you've not seen any person in particular extend his tenure beyond 8 years. But I'm sure that if they had the chance, they will here in Nigeria. But we'll see how it goes.
Very interesting. We have our correspondent from Uganda who will give us the update on what's happening over there. Good morning, Dorcas. Thank you very much for joining us. I do believe, Dorcas, we're having some technical issues, but we will certainly look into this conversation because just like Osaoge has mentioned, these conversations are important. You talked about lots of people, there was something that you said about, godfatherism, and people extending their power, their tenure. Yoweri Museveni had come under fire for extending his tenure in 2015. These things cannot happen in Nigeria, but what we do see is there's some sort of copy and paste effect that happens in Africa. When something happens in one country, after a while you start to see a lot of people taking note from that. And lots of people are asking, shouldn't they have come to a term where democracy is practiced as democracy as democracy should be. And although that's also another conversation for another day,
It's
because
still
some other people have said that democracy is not an African solution.
Yeah, and I
And
was
that
just going to mention that, yeah, I think we really need to understand, perfectly what exactly is the best way to rule, in African countries, but I mean, if you have been in office for 25 years, are you just going to wake up one morning and realize that, oh, my tenure is going to be ending next week? What next? Yeah, I would rather, throw in my son, just put my son in there to continue. Anyway.